let it bounce.
It's time for our initial points of contact. Now, at this point, you've probably heard me say multiple times, I'm not going to teach you how to be a sales professional. I'm either going to assume that you have already done that, you have the system that works already as a sales professional, or you're just going to go out and figure that out on your own. You can do stuff through YouTube and all that to figure out what are the best ways for cold calling or email outreach or whatever that is. Like, you can figure out how to become a sales professional outside of this program. This is specifically around creating referral partnerships. So I'm not going to teach you sales 101. What I am going to do, though, is kind of a part B to what we just talked about and some things to consider as you start reaching out. So the first thing is there is one of the greatest business books of all time, at least by popularity, that's called From Good to Great. It's by a gentleman who's named Jim Collins. And there is a concept in there that I absolutely love. That is the flywheel concept. It is the flywheel of momentum. I've already talked about the power of momentum. And what he explains is this idea that I'm sure you've seen many times in your own business in the past, especially with sales, where you get on a roll with something and all of a sudden things just start being easy. And we want to get ourselves in a place of momentum as quickly and often as possible. And that certainly applies here as well. If you have a large flywheel and you need to start getting that thing to turn, the first couple times you start pushing on that thing, it takes a lot of effort to get it going. But what happens over time is once you start getting that thing going, the weight behind it, the momentum keeps it going, where just giving it a little shove makes it easier. And that's why I think it's much, much better for you to just start with the volume play, where you want to go out there, get as many partners as possible and start with that, because you're going to gain momentum and you're going to find tactics and conversational pieces, questions that you ask, things that you do with your tonality, all of that from a salesman perspective, that's just going to come from having those new types of conversation as you start these relationships, just from the volume play, as opposed to trying to overanalyze this and get analysis paralysis and try to get it perfect. You're better off just going out there and you'll start momentum just by doing. So number one foundational thing, just get out there and start going. We have a brand new initiative at our company right now where we're starting different relationships with insurance agents. And at one point, one of my guys who's a part of that pilot program, I'm like, guys, listen, you're overthinking this right now. Back in 1959, UPS realized that they could save tremendous amounts of time and effort by only taking right-hand turns. And now at this point, if you look at UPS drivers, 90% of their turns are right-hand turns. Why? It's just more efficient and they get to places faster, easier. It's less gas, which obviously saves them not only time, but dollars. I told them, I'm like, if all you did was follow the UPS truck around and every single time you saw an insurance agency, you stop in there, you will be more effective than what you're doing right now, where you're overanalyzing, trying to figure out what's the perfect way to do this. Just go out and start making right-hand turns, okay? My point is, if you just go out and you just start in the center of your city and start making loops around these people that are on your list, you are going to have more success than you can ever imagine, just because you're going to get that momentum going. So the other thing that I want you to understand, outside of just the momentum play, the volume play, which I think is key, is I truly believe that the only people who actually enjoy cold calling are either psychopaths in a multi-level marketing agency or maybe a little bit of both. I don't want you to feel like you have to believe that the only way to be successful in this is by cold door knocking, by getting a list of people and going out there and reaching out by just walking into their business. However, fortune favors the bold. And so if that's all you got right now and you're just a salesman who knows how to sell, go do salesman things. I promise you, you are going to find success with it. You will find a way to do it. And eventually you'll get referral partners who introduce other referral partners, and that's going to work as well. Now, in the meantime, let's say that you want to take a little bit different approach. I want to introduce a concept from someone who I would almost look up to as a mentor. His name is Sammy, and he gave me a business concept that I think is so clear when it comes to how to make decisions on things that I really appreciate it. Sammy, who is very successful in his own right, had multiple companies that he was a part of, not just national, but even international companies that he was brought in to create. And he did so very successfully. And he's in his 60s at this point. And so he's had a ton of life experience. experience. One of the things that he introduced me to is the idea of the bullseye. Clearly, being in the firearms industry, that really helped me to be able to understand things, but this is something that he talks about often. He said, Mike, anytime you start a new initiative, which is what you're doing with referral partnerships right now, he said, I need you to look at your core business as the bullseye on a target right now. That is exactly what you're doing right now today at whatever level you're at. Let's just say that it's great, it's good, it doesn't matter. It's as good as it is. It exists. He said anytime within his businesses, they took their already existing business and they looked at it, the new concepts that they were going to work at, as each time was a something that was different from their business. That was as if it went out one ring. And maybe if there was two things that were different from what their core business target was, that bullseye that they currently did, now it was almost 2 rings out and 3 rings and 4 rings. So the order of magnitude of every time that something changed from their core business, it was as if it was one additional ring outside of what that target was that they were looking at. So the business concept that he explained to me was, Mike, in every single one of our businesses, when we went and tried to do new pilots, new initiatives that were more than one ring out from our core business, almost across the board, they failed. And it wasn't because the concept was bad. It was because there was so much, even though it was only 2 or 3 differences from our core business, enough had changed from our core business that it caused us to lose focus. And so either the pilot had to die or the core business had to die. And clearly the core business wasn't going to go away. So what he always recommended was anytime we were starting a brand new initiative, he said, Mike, start with just going one ring out and find whatever it is that you can make it only that one ring out as opposed to 2, 3, or 4, and you're going to have a higher likelihood of success. I think that this is critical when it comes to starting referral partnerships. When you are looking at the things that you do right now as your target and that bullseye within that target, you want to look for what is the 1 degree separation. What is the network that you currently have that's just a little bit outside of what you currently are doing? If there is something that, if there's an opportunity that you have to be able to look at those types of partnerships as opposed to ones that are wild and maybe even not wild, 2, 3, 4 rings out, you're going to have a much higher likelihood of success. So what I'm saying behind all of this, not only is this great for really good business concepts in the future, but when it comes to building this referral partnership network, start with the network that you have, or maybe just 1 degree removed, because it's going to be easier to get going and it's going to have a higher likelihood of success. Start with who you know already and who they know. Professionals know professionals. You know what I'm talking about. And so if you have some connections within a certain space that you want to start doing referral partnerships with, go to those connections and tell them your intentions. Oftentimes you're going to find that strangers are going to be much better business partners or referral partners than the people that you know right now. However, that shouldn't take away from the knowledge transfer that you can get from the people that you already know. So when you go to people that you already know, they understand what you've done in the past, the positives, the negatives. And so when you come with this new business idea, don't expect that they're immediately going to latch onto it or be a great referral partner. They might, and that'd be awesome. But the biggest thing is start with the professionals that you know, that they're just that 1 degree of network outside of you, and find out about what you're looking to do, how it would work, get some of their input. And obviously, if you can get them as a referral partner, that is tremendous. That's fantastic. You should do that. But look at that as, who do you already know? And then 1 degree out, who are the professionals that know the professionals? The other thing, clearly, things like Google and social media are going to be a tremendous resource when it comes to finding those subject matter experts that we're talking about. If you're able to find some of the subject matter experts, you're going to be able to connect with them before a cold call. In today's day and age, it's much easier to be able to engage on someone's content on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or otherwise, and be able to create that know, like, and trust factor before you ever actually have that communication. It's much more acceptable than it ever has been to reach out to somebody personally through a direct message and be able to say, hey, I really like your content. I see you talking about this. I'm thinking about going and doing something similar with my family. Now you're not a psychopath. You're talking about your family. And I would love your input on X, Y, and Z. Those types of conversations are much more acceptable and much more professional than they ever have been in the past. And so if you can use some of your local, either your local Facebook groups or groups that you're a part of on there. If you can just find these subject matter experts by searching online, you can actually start a relationship before you actually start a relationship, because if they see that you've been commenting on their things, you've been paying attention to what they're doing, and then you reach out to them directly, and you don't go straight in for the jugular, you don't go talking business, you just make a connection, it's easier than ever, and it actually saves oftentimes a lot of time from having to go business to business doing the cold call, right turn only UPS thing I was talking about before. The other thing, I mentioned social media, local social media groups. I'm going to define that even more as, if you can find the local groups on social media, that is a gold mine. So I know someone who is a female firearms instructor who only teaches females, who makes $250,000 a year just through Facebook groups, where she reaches out. She's the subject matter expert, and she works with these females that maybe have come from an abusive past. Maybe they haven't, but a lot of them have. And she specifically just works with these females in a group orientation or a one-on-one. She's got a foundation for people that can donate to the efforts as well that she puts out there. But all she does, her main source of gaining leads, is literally just in these specific female groups, or just the local groups that she's a part of in her part of the country. I'm going to say, I'm not going to define where it's at. So for myself, I live in West Bend, Wisconsin. So we have about 30 to 35,000 people that live here, maybe a little bit more. And there are so many groups. There's literally dozens of groups that are West Bend specific. Some of them are West Bend Buy Sell Trade. Some of them are West Bend Farmers Market. Some of them are West Bend Gripes and things like this. I'm sure you're familiar with exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're able to be in some of those groups, you can provide some of the knowledge transfer of what you're really good at, but then be able to go in there and say, if you needed X to do Y, who would be the person you'd recommend? What you're doing is you can tee up other people to recommend one of the people that might be on your Dream 25 list as a referral partner. So imagine this. Let's say that you are looking to partner with insurance agencies, with independent insurance agents. You might put in one of these local groups. If you were a small business owner who needed to get business insurance, who would be the trusted resource that you would go to? If there are 5 different people that get tagged, you just got 5 new leads. And on top of that, you have a reason to reach out to them. Hey, the reason I'm reaching out to you is you were highly recommended within a local group as the person who is really good for this. The person who recommended you was this person. My name is, and now you go into your sales pitch. Okay. I'm kind of fast forwarding through a little bit of this. You want to do the relationship building and all of that. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. You should understand that, or just go figure that out on your own, or reach out directly, I guess, to me. But the point is, you now have the opportunity, easier than ever, to go into local groups where you have people from your local community that we're talking about, you creating local referral partnerships, and you can get free leads by just asking who's the go-to expert in this area, by just teeing it up appropriately. When you become the go-to expert within your own space, it also makes it much, much easier when you start reaching out. So if you're active in those groups and just posting, once or twice a day, even just responding to, just commenting, responding to posts, you're going to be surprised at how far that can go. The last thing I'm going to say, once you start reaching out to these guys, we now live in a digital era. And so if you're reaching out to people that are local, I would recommend that you obviously try to meet in person and try to own the environment. Okay. Where do you feel most comfortable talking about business? For me, I love talking business. I'll talk business all day long. I need to filter myself a lot of times at social gatherings. I try not to be the person that first brings up sales, marketing, business, personal development, all that, because I know I can just go on forever. And that's just not everybody's gig. Some people would prefer to go golfing and do the baseball thing, or what. It's just, I love business in that aspect. And so for me, even though I love talking about business, for whatever reason, I just don't feel as comfortable sitting in a coffee shop with tons of people walking around and being able to have the same type of conversation that I would if I were sitting down one-to-one or in a small group setting with somebody in an office space. And so maybe you're completely different. It's obviously going to be a personal thing, but my point is, make sure that you don't put all this effort into getting these conversations conversation started, and then you finally sit down and you just don't feel comfortable with the scenario that you're in, whether it's the location, whether it's what you're talking about. Make sure that you are prepared. Preparation creates partnerships. And so if you can make sure that the location is great and that you're comfortable, if you have an office, that's cool. If they have an office, that's obviously cool as well. But just one last thing that I want to mention is make sure that you consider the surroundings, you consider the time frame, you consider the topics that you're going to talk about, and just have that in mind before you walk into something. Make sure that you own that environment, you feel comfortable talking about business while you're at it, and then make sure that you knock it out of the park because you've prepared, you're the professional.